Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Massive drama going down yesterday in the VALORANT world on the 100 Thieves side and also on NRG. NRG officially confirming two of their primary individuals gone from their roster. Victor is gone and so is Chet, the head coach. He has a lot of words to say on his frustrations with the state of NRG over the last couple of months. Some crazy stories on him personally paying for the buyouts of Ethan and Demon 1, but also what happens next for that team and also what's going on at 100 Thieves. Some big rumours emerging last night that this 100T team does not necessarily get on especially well behind the scenes. Lots of reaction therefore to the comments. 100T players seemingly not very happy about it. Lots to dive into today. Very much into your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, quickly on EMEA. Their playoffs are underway. Looks pretty locked in for which teams are going to be there at the World Championship, but it's not yet guaranteed. Here are the Fnatic boys, by the way. And there were some questions on whether Leo's coming back, because Hero, to be fair to him, has looked better and better basically every single series they've played. And sure, Leo, phenomenal player, took some time away for health reasons, and there's some questions on to whether he's actually coming back right. But yeah, as Fnatic say, Hero's still playing today. Update soon on whether he's going to return. And Fnatic did take down KC. This was a really tight series there. They lost the Icebox again, 13-7. This is a bit of a concern now. I'd say actually more than a bit of a concern, I would say, for Fnatic, is that their Icebox is just not anywhere near what it used to be. They're still picking it, potentially thinking that the old days are still here, but they're just not. And, you know, Narrate goes 24-14 to win the Icebox. However, this was crucial for KC. Fnatic are already going to be there at Champions based on their points, but still, for KC, this was pretty rough. End up going to an overtime. The first half was tied 6-6. The second half was tied 6-6, but, you know, at this point, they were on a real rampage here, KC, but then they started to let it fall away, lose the overtime in the end, and then the latest was 13-6 on the decider. So fair play to Fnatic. I think KC mentally were in a pretty tricky spot, and Magnum had 4 kills on the final map with a pretty ugly series. Narrate tried his best, but, you know, it is what it is. And Hero had a big bounce back in the series despite losing, well, getting like no kills basically in the map 1. But, you know, so basically as the playoffs look right now, KC are out, right? And so are Na'Vi. Na'Vi lost to Vitality 2-1. So, you know, their season is basically over at this point because they've just fallen so short as of late. They even won the game 1 of the Haven with a big comeback, but after that it was 13-5, 13-7, not even close. So Vitality go through. Of course, of these 4 teams, 3 will qualify guaranteed, and if Vitality lose to Heretics and then lose in the losers bracket, I think KC still make it on points. So that's what Vitality have to think about, but Fnatic are going to be there. Heretics are also guaranteed, I'm pretty sure now, based on the way the standings has worked out. But other drama on the day, just a quick clarification here really, because we saw this clip from Zeltis yesterday where he was discussing the audio issues that they had in the series, and he says, not sure if this would have changed anything in the series, nor do I blame Riot. Just unlucky that the audio jack was broken, and I thought that I was just crazy, so I didn't push the issue harder after the first tech board, he says. So Zelta's going to take some personal responsibility for, sure, he had audio issues in the series, but he says that, like, he didn't really mention it too much to the refs because he thought that he was going crazy or something, and, you know, the audio jack was broken. But, you know, then again, the audio jack being broken is the fault of the, you know, the technicians or Riot or whatever you want to say, the referees, the guys in charge, just because, you know, it's something that shouldn't be a problem. But I guess at the same time, there's responsibility on the players to report it and say what's going on. Otherwise, they won't know that it needs to be fixed. Although, despite Zeltis kind of defending them to some extent, EU does say from 100T also had no audio all series versus Loud and wasn't allowed to tech pause after the ascent. Loud would have beaten us regardless, they played perfect. But I wish Riot let teams pause more than punishing anyone who played on Team B side that day, he says. So yeah, he also agrees, maybe he sat in the same seat as Zeltis, that yeah, there were serious problems, and it was the same thing for him as well, and yet Riot didn't, you know, step in to help him out at all. But the big 100T drama was as follows, right? So on a Platchet episode, Dryad, of course, who does lots of the interviews with the VCT, comes on and talks a little bit about what's going on. Now, I think this clip was somewhat blown out of proportion to a certain extent, because, you know, she's talking, there's a bit of more context before this really, where she kind of discusses, like, she's only speculating, she doesn't really know what's going on, and she's just talking about things that kind of like she's thought about or seen or whatever, and she doesn't really know whether what she's saying is actually accurate or not. So, you know, the fact that there was just this one moment was obviously causing a lot of the drama. But anyway, I'll have to share the clip because there was a lot of discussion, and I think for good reason, on whether she should even be talking about this type of stuff in the first place.
I, you know, I get a little bit of insight from the interviews, and I work with that. Whatever. Sometimes I feel like I'm overcooking it. Like sometimes I'll get an interview, or I'm like, it seems like the team really hates each other. Not about Lev, but other teams. But for Lev,
Which team? Yeah, tell us.
100 Thieves.
Oh, you actually told us? That's crazy.
So Busio clearly not happy with, Dread coming out there and kind of talking about stuff that she's heard or her feelings based on what she'd, heard discussed either in interviews or just watching things behind the scenes. And this is the thing, the talent, the commentators, the casters, the guys doing the interviews or whatever, they get to see information behind the scenes, behind closed doors that is not seen publicly, right? I'm sure they will see players blowing up on each other, frustrations emerging behind closed doors, behind the curtains. And it's generally convention, I would say, for those behind the scenes in those positions that maybe see that type of stuff, but, wouldn't say it publicly, right? Because it's going to kind of reveal information about the team and, no one behind the scenes is going to like that type of stuff happening. Now, I do, as I say, I think it's blown out of proportion to some degree. But I know that Drad did kind of apologise after to say, okay, maybe I shouldn't have exactly implied what I implied, or at least mentioned a specific team, because, saying what you said was fine. Maybe mentioning the specific team, obviously, was what made it go too far. And they had a pretty funny response to Boosty, basically saying, okay, look guys, go get yourself some frozen yogurts and basically start enjoying each other's company more, because if they're having an issue with this. But I thought it was definitely interesting to note that Boostio was obviously like, what are you talking about? Even Bang in the reply said, well, we're just guessing at these team environments for fun now, right? So his implication is that, yeah, this is not the case. We certainly don't hate each other. And actually Courage was in the reply here saying, wow, this person is clueless, before then deleting this tweet as well. So lots of drama on this. Even Zix as well, the head coach of the 100T team, said this, our team hangs out with each other all the time after practice wins, losses. We're one of the most open teams when it comes to talking about our team problems without anyone having hard feelings. I actually have zero clue where this insight is coming from. So, the entire team basically came out to deny that any of this is true. And Dread then kind of came out to apologise and said, okay, shouldn't have said that in the way that I said it. And, Zix says, no worries. I just didn't like seeing a huge Reddit thread titled Dread says 100T players hate each other when my team has a great environment and culture, so felt the need to clarify. And, of course, speculation, obviously getting spun into the reality, whatever. I think it was overblown to some degree, but still pretty juicy drama. The other big story, though, of the day is on NRG. They officially confirm 2 of their members gone. Victor, a player, and Chet, their coach. I think everyone was really expecting Chet to be gone, but the reasons behind this are actually quite fascinating, and well, we'll dive into some of them now. As Victor says, thanks for the memories during the last 2 years. The interesting thing, I guess, is that Crashies is still there, because now I don't know if Crashies is necessarily going to stay for the longer term, but Victor and Crashies have been a duo for a long time, and that seems to be coming to an end. Crashies may also go elsewhere, and he may join forces with Victor on some other team, but Crashies, for now, is still on NRG. But for Victor, they've not renewed his contract, they're getting rid of him, and he says, thanks for the memories, basically. And Chet says, NRG management has decided to continue without me for next season. Now, actually, Chet did say that the players really like Chet and want to keep him around, but the team has decided to go elsewhere. He does say that he'll be exploring options in Valorant and in Counter-Strike, which is interesting based on what happened a couple of weeks ago now, where there was an HLTV article that said that Chet was looking for a CS return, which apparently affected his decision or his position on the team to some extent, and which apparently did affect his position on the team, at least to some degree, and as a result of that, the organisation potentially made a decision, even though he might not have considered that at the time. The other point here is that Demon 1 has now been shown as becoming active again on the NRG roster, rather than merely a reserve. So that is a big thing to note as well, that, Demon 1 as an active player again, as in back on the starting roster, although that's not necessarily guaranteed. So Chet talked about this on stream last night, said an awful lot of things. I want to just scroll through some of them, because there was some fascinating detail in here, right? But, he talks about the HLTV article that effectively contributed him to getting dropped. But just wanted to go through this. A New Heaven puts together pretty much all of the bullet points, which I thought was just absolutely fantastic. So this is the highlight of the situation here, really. Players didn't want him released. It was mainly a management decision. We'll get into this buyout thing in a second here. The article from HLTV influenced the management decision, although that when the article came out, he apparently wasn't considering considering going to CS at the time, but now he is going to look at CS, Valorant, Tier 1, Tier 2. The players all message him nice things. FNS and Som are probably on the team next season. Had good vibes with everyone on the team, but NRG behind the scenes putting the roster together had role issues at the start of the year. Everyone tried their hardest. No loyalty in esports. This is the crazy one, though, that when they were trying to get Ethan and Demon 1, and they were trying to buy them out from EG, he actually contributed Chet some personal money, low 5 figures, we're talking, 10, 15, 20 grand or something, to get those guys out of their contract. And he says, okay, I probably shouldn't have done that in hindsight, but I wanted to do it because I really wanted that team to happen. And he's now asking the team, like, hey, can I get that money back type thing? Like, is that good? Or what, is that money just gone forever type thing? So kind of not a great look really for NRG in some ways as an organization that this is happening. So kind of not a great look for NRG in some ways as an organization. This is happening, that they're using their players or coaches' personal money to pay for buyouts. But that's interesting. He says the off-season's going to be crazy. He says he'd like to stay in Valorant. Crashies probably is going to stay. Players found out that Chet was getting cut the same morning that he did. And, just some other questions really on what's going to happen with NRG as a roster. Not really being so sure. Talks about Ye being a good teammate and worked hard just because, the drama with Steel and everything and the bleed guys over the last few months. No bad blood with Demon 1. It was between Sadak and Narrate and Ethan Demon 1 at the end of the day. Team decision. Les was not on the market last off-season. He thought that every team was ahead of them in some ways and they're playing catch-up in terms of team protocols, which is, an interesting note just because, he's obviously part of that in some respects, as is the team. Says that, he's making similar money to the players were, which I guess isn't too bad. Aspas was locked into Lev last off-season, talking about Victor and Crashies being a package deal. Felt like the team was restricted in terms of their playmaking and all sorts of stuff. Feel free to just scroll through this. Obviously, they talk about Sinatra as well, that he did fine in his kind of trials that he did. He messaged him to try out. He had a decent performance, but it seems like Riot's okay with that, which is kind of interesting to note that Riot seems okay with Sinatra coming back, but the trials fell through just because Ethan and Demon 1 eventually were joining. But the Sinatra thing was actually a possibility, which raises the door for next season, and just a few other interesting note too as well, some of which in bold, some of which not. I thought this was interesting about Lev winning champs, that he thinks that Lev are really, really good and have a very good chance of taking down the big one this season. Of course, they are going to be there guaranteed. So it looks pretty likely to me that Victor and Crashies not going to be teammates any longer, will not be teammates for the first time since Valorant release, they talk about. And Zeltis says, unless something crazy happens, and then he puts together, of course, an interesting potential roster: Chet, Marv, Ye, Victor Rossi, and Sinatra. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Just one final thing to mention, I'm flying today out to Dallas for a Call of Duty event over there for the World Championship, and I'll be there for a few days. So the Valorant stuff will not be able to be uploaded at the normal time because simply of time zones. I'd have to get up at 4 in the morning to get the videos done for the normal time, so that's not going to be happening. So the video, I will try and still make Valorant videos, but they'll probably be coming slightly later in the day than normal, but hopefully that's okay. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Doesn't matter anymore. But what's it called? Dude, I gave a little bit of money to pay for Ethan and Demon 1's buyout, and the fact that they it was blindsided, but the fact that they didn't keep me in the loop more often towards the end is kind of fucked up. But it is what it is. So